Okay, so if you're looking at a little bit further into Mercury or Hermes, um, talks about the caduceus. Some of the oldest is a Mesopotamian Sumerian god, Nigashuzida, or however you want to pronounce that. That would have been before Nebo because it's 4th to 3000 BC. Nebo would have been around about 600 BC around there. That's when Israel went into captivity by Nebuchadnezzar. As a symbolic object, it represents Hermes or the Roman Mercury, or they talked about that, and by extension, trade, occupation, or undertakings associated with the god. In later antiquity, the caduceus provided basis for the astrological symbol representing the planet Mercury. Thus, through its use in astrology, alchemy, or astronomy, I mean that's basically all witchcraft, it has come to denote the planet and elemental metal. I showed that earlier on the slide of the same name. It is the same, said the wand will wake the sleeping and send awake to sleep. What is the whole point in the Bible? People are sleeping. Remember the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish. They all went to sleep. Always talk about this. When you try to talk about the apocalypse to people, it's as if they're under a spell, or they're under a sleep, or they're under pharmakia, sorcery. Interesting. If applied to the dying, their death was gentle. If applied to the dead, they return to life. Okay, that's kind of why I believe the devil will fake the second coming of Christ, and also will fake the resurrection as well. So you can take that a couple ways. You could say, well, the medical system revives people. That's another reason maybe why that's thought of that way. By extension of its association with Mercury and Hermes, the caduceus is also recognized as a symbol of commerce. Interesting. Markets, right? In negotiation, two realms in which the balance, I guess that would be the scale, exchanged and reciprocity are recognized as ideals. This association is ancient and consistent from the classical period to modern times. The caduceus is also used as a symbol representing printing. You can think about money. By extension, attributes of Mercury, in this case, associated with writing and eloquence. Although the rod of Asclepius, which has only one snake and is never depicted with wings, we've got it right here, is the traditional, more widely used symbol of medicine. A lot of people like to say that was Moses in the wilderness with the staff. They try to biblicalize, if that's the word, everything, Christianize everything. No, it's actually going back to Asclepius. It's more of a pagan thing. It's pretty obvious because the Jews, when they went into apostasy, they were worshiping that bronze serpent. Later, you can find that later on. I think it's in Kings. The caduceus is sometimes used by the healthcare organizations, so that's this one, given that the caduceus is primarily a symbol of commerce and other medical symbology. Many healthcare professionals disapprove this usage because they would rather have this one. They're both pretty bad, let's be honest. Now, what's interesting is Mount Nebo today, where Moses viewed the promised land, they've got that same symbol. Very interesting. No coincidence there. All right. We talked about that. Mercury is considered messenger of the gods because it was closest to the sun. I think you can understand that. We already talked about the sun god. That would be, Baal. We already saw that verse where it talked about Baal or Baal and Nebo in the same sentence, right? Okay, you go to the apotheosis of Washington, the Capitol building. They have Mercury, the god Mercury, right there in the Capitol, right? So now they've got Washington right here as the North Star. This is what's called the celestial sphere. That's why all capitals have domes, gold domes, because it's talking. You got Poseidon here, Mercury, because these are the zodiacs or the stars or the astrological signs. They're saying that the zodiacs rule the capitals. That's what they're saying, right? And then we also talked about that in Isaiah 14, the devil wanted us rule on he wanted to rule on the sides of the north. What is the sides of the north? It's Polaris. It's the North Star. It looks like they've got maybe Washington there because all the stars revolve around the North Polaris. See that? That's what's going on because it's kind of the most important thing. It should be, you've got the two bears, the Little Dipper and the Big Dipper. I think it's in Amos that relates those, or it mentions the bear constellations, but anyway, that's really God. But the devil's trying to get that position, right? I think that's pretty obvious. Now, Marduk the father of Nebo, Jupiter is the father of Mercury. I thought this is interesting. I saw this about Mercury. The mythology of Mercury begins back with Babylon, where Mercury was known as Nebo. Nebo was a son of Marduk. The Marduk later became king by slaying the sea monster. That would, in fact, be, if you read the Leviathan, the sea monster in the Bible is related to Pharaoh, because the Babylonians did, in fact, take out Pharaoh, king of the south. If you read Daniel 11, you see this battle between king of the north and king of the south, right? So that this continues. It's the black and white, it's the white magic, it's the black magic, it's the yin and the yang, it's the chessboard, the checkerboard, black, and both sides are bad. It's the tree of good and knowledge of good and evil. Both are bad. It's just man's. The white is just man's version of good. It's works based, right? Where King of the South is black. If you watch, I think it was the movie Julius Caesar. I think it was who's the most famous? Cleopatra said, "Rome is day, Egypt is night. Rome is masculine, Egypt is feminine. It's the sun, it's the moon, it's the day, it's the night, right?" But there is some interesting things with that. So basically, the king of the north, according to the mythology here, takes out the Leviathan, the sea monster. That's Pharaoh. That's Egypt, and establishes order in the world. That's kind of, I would say that's pretty interesting because, like I said, King of the North is the fake. The devil wanted to sit on the sides of the north. That's why you have the King of the North in the Bible. That's Babylon. So basically, it's the false church. It's the false religion. It's taking the Roman Catholic Church as the King of the North. If you look at they've conquered the whole world, especially in the Dark Ages, right? And that would be, so King of the South during the Dark Ages would be just straight up paganism, like the Mayans, the Aztecs, South America. Think of it in those terms, okay? Anyway, King of the North always wins over King of the South. Interestingly enough, if you look at money, some of the most early symbols they put on the money was, well, not only is money made out of gold, that's pretty obvious. They got the Pillars of Hercules. Why is that important? Well, Hercules was the brother of Mercury, or Hermes, and you've got Jupiter being the father. And anyway, that you can see this, we're getting a little bit more, but basically the Pillars of Hercules were over the Straits of Gibraltar. It's the entrance from the Mediterranean Sea into the Atlantic, the Atlantis, the new Atlantis. That is why the Atlantic Ocean is called that. They thought that Atlantis, the original Atlantis, was right outside the Pillars of Hercules. So it's kind of to the west, obviously. So that's kind of, they're saying, nothing beyond this point is what they put on that in Latin, symbolizing, sailors were scared they were going to fall off the edge of the earth if they went out the Straits of Gibraltar or something silly like that. But the Phoenicians, back in Bible times, were already going out past that. It's pretty obvious. The Phoenicians went out, and the Phoenicians were the ones who started the monetary system. They would be direct in the line of Cain, and then Cain, I think it was Tubal-Cain, was the creator of bronze and iron, metallurgy. So the sons of Cain are directly over the metal works. Mercury is also considered the lord of the tricksters in the Roman pantheon. He was not only the patron of deity in commerce and travel, as well as the messengers of thieves, always pushing the boundaries. Quick to fool the other gods, he was offer them assistance. So what's interesting is Nebo is the lord of the tricksters. They're admitting this. They just do a little bit of research. So they're admitting that Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian system, is tricking you. They have to tell you this in plain writing to clear their conscience. Okay, just like Mystery Babylon is in the Bible. Everyone's got Bibles. They don't really think about this stuff. So they're putting this out in plain sight. Again, you've got the city built without hands. It's the New Jerusalem coming down out of God, from God out of heaven. Interesting. Also, Okay, so they're thinking the alchemists, for example, have worked their way to eternal life and this Mercury has done its job. How? Separating those of selfish characters from those of selfless characters. Interestingly enough, it says in Deuteronomy 17:17 that it says not to amass silver or gold. Why is that interesting? Well, this is why. Okay, so though if you're amassing gold, it's symbolic of eternal life or works-based religion or the Holy Grail, right? That Holy Grail is symbolic. Yes, if you watch the Da Vinci Code, that's the bloodline of Mary, whatever. Supposedly Mary Magdalene, I should say. But that's just, I mean, it's just works-based religion. However, that is the Holy Grail is the cup of abominations, I believe. Okay, okay, you can see the New Atlantis right there. And then that would be make America in philosophical terms the New Atlantis today. Okay, but more on that later.